welcome along to another edition of Off Script. Now, we had planned to delve into Gary's career as a football club owner, but events on the other side of Manchester have sort of put paid to those plans. Gary, there is really only one place to start, and that is the sacking of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, your former teammate, someone you've backed publicly. What are your initial emotions to that decision?
Not surprised, but disappointed. Always disappointed when a manager loses his job, to be honest with you, not just Ole. But obviously disappointed that someone who I played with, who loves the club, couldn't end it in the right way. But he very rarely ends in the right way for a football manager at a club. He was always going to get to this point. I'd rather it have got to the end of the season and amicably and in a way which was right. But the results have been so bad, and the performances have been terrible, and the players look drained. Ole looks drained, and inevitability this morning when we learnt the news that he was going to be sacked, because the reality of it is the pressure had become too much just for everybody at the club. They couldn't withstand it anymore. They tried to withstand it, to be fair to them, but like I say, yesterday Watford, that was, it's a wimpish performance, terrible, really bad, and the players obviously want a new voice, need a new voice.
We've had, at United, they've had 4 permanent managers since Ferguson retired. Yeah. David Moyes, Louis van Gaal, Mourinho, Solskjaer. A 5th is on the way. In that time they've won 3 major trophies. How have Manchester United ended up in that mess, that constant churning of managers and not being able to settle and get that longevity that when you played at the club they thrived off? Lack
of good decision making on the football side. There's no doubt about that. I think there's a cultural problem at the club.
I was just going to say the consensus at the moment is this isn't Solskjaer's fault. It's not of his making. He's the fall guy, but it's from above.
Ole's taken a battering in the last 2 months, and that's what you get when you're a manager of a football club, particularly one as big as Manchester United. But the reality of it is, once he leaves, the focus of attention will be elsewhere. It will be at the football executive, it will be at the decision makers, it'll be at the owners. And they've proven that without Sir Alex Ferguson now, that they can't operate properly as a football club. I'm at Manchester City here today, and I live in the city centre, so I drive up here today and I see not just a football stadium, I see a DJ outside playing music, and I see an atmosphere building and an energy and a fan experience and a spirit. I see a new 25,000 seater world-class music arena being built over there. There's a world-class football academy. There's world-class facilities. There's another mini stadium that the academy and the women's team use. They built a football empire here. That ultimately, where everything threads through, they make good decisions on and off the pitch. Yet over the road at Old Trafford, who've got the best asset in the world in Manchester United. This is the biggest football club, I think, in the world, and certainly the biggest football club in this country. You've got basically, I think, a lot of money being spent at times in the last 8 years, but the decision-making's been really poor. 3 out of those 4 managers that you've mentioned were given long-term contracts or extensions and sacked within a few months. Now, it can happen once, but it can't happen 3 times. It can't happen 3 times. So, look, there's something fundamentally wrong at the club that means that they're not winning, because you spend that money, over £1 billion, you bring in world-class managers like Jose Mourinho and Louis van Gaal, and they struggle to get in the success that the club wants. And players who, to be fair, you would imagine would play better at the club as well. So something's got to change for the club to go, get to where it needs to be. We could sit here and argue and be reasonable and say that the work that Ole's done is building the bridge back to a better future, and someone will pick it up now and go and run with it and win the league. But I'm not sure.
If you look at the last 8 years since Ferguson and David Gill left, it's almost a demise of an institution. Would you look at it that way? And how does that make you feel? Something that you devoted your whole playing career towards. Is it slowly ebbing away? You look at, as you say, what Manchester City are doing here, Liverpool, arch rivals having major success in recent years. It just adds to the mess, doesn't it?
Look, there's a number of things that the club need to do. They need to appoint a great manager and need to get this next appointment right to build on the work that's happened in the last 2 or 3 years, where I think they have been more measured in the transfer market, and I do think that they have made better decisions. However, off the pitch, they need to build a vision. They need to build a vision for a football club.
What does that look like, in your opinion?
A vision looks like, how do you create fan experience? How do you put Manchester United back to a point whereby there is that connection right the way through from top to bottom? You've got the regeneration, you've got the new stadium, you've got a new training facilities, you've got a women's stadium, you've got an academy stadium.
use some of that land next to Old Trafford and utilise it.
They've got 48 or whatever it is, 35, 40 acres. But my point is, you've got to make everyone believe that they're on a journey to excellence, and that culturally you're linking up with them and connecting with them in the communities, not just locally, nationally and globally, but locally to start with. Locally, then you build a national community, then you build an international community. Manchester United talk regularly about building digital communities, and I've been very critical of them in the last few weeks. They seem to look a lot at algorithms and analytics and sentiment of fans and doing this sort of thing, but get the core right. Who's communicating the message of the football club to the fans? I don't know one person that's in the football club who can communicate what that football club is to the fans, who's still, to be fair, active operationally. There are obviously some people in the boardroom, and there's a couple of people obviously in the club that know the club, but they haven't got the ability at this moment, just through basically not being in the roles to do it, to be able to communicate that vision to a group of people who love this club, and that's the fans.
I know you constantly distance yourself from having any kind of role at Manchester United. I just wondered what kind of person you need personalities there, surely. Someone like yourself, if not you, then who's out there at the moment who could do that?
Look, at the end of the day, at this moment in time, I won't go back into Old Trafford. That just won't happen. It's not right. Look.
But you can see from the fans' perspective, they want someone.
Yeah, but you can achieve the values and the culture of a football club without necessarily being the biggest fan in the world. Yeah. Jurgen Klopp's done that at Liverpool. Yeah. Pep Guardiola has created a culture and a vibe here in this place that's special. My point is, it doesn't need to necessarily be, the local kid coming back home or the ex-legend. It doesn't need to be that. It needs to be somebody who can grasp what this football club is. Sir Alex Ferguson came down from Aberdeen in 1986, not knowing what Manchester United was in terms of, never lived in Manchester before and hadn't worked at the club.
He grasped
it.
Yeah.
He got it straight away and he understood it, and then he put it into everybody else. And that's someone, to be fair, obviously who created a dynasty. Now, I'm not saying Manchester United need to find someone who can create a dynasty, but what they need to do is find a manager who can come to their football club and build something from basically the roots up and understand how to communicate with people, the fans, the culture, the values, the principles, the entertainment, the risk, everything that Manchester United is. They've got to be able to do it, and they need good decision makers on the football side, and they haven't got that.
If we had to map out how Manchester United go about that, then in the next couple of years, obviously appointing that manager, as you say, is going to be important.
There's a number of things.
In a couple of years, and then 5 years. What's the 5 and 10 year plan look like?
The first thing they've got to do is, obviously, I think Ed Woodward's leaving. They'll appoint a new CEO, and that CEO has to ensure that they've got the right people operating the football side of the club.
Yeah.
That's it. So
that's probably the first job, isn't it?
First job. That's an immediate job. The CEO obviously will change. Ed Woodward will leave, and basically come in. It may be Richard Arnold, who's worked with Ed over the last 10 years, and he's got to distance himself from what's happened in the last 8 years, and he's got to put his own footprint on it. He's got to make sure that he doesn't just become someone who basically takes over what's already happened. He has to assess everything that's going on at the club. And I think they're making sure that the right football people are in there to operate it, who can then get the right manager in at the end of the season. It's critical. Richard Arnold, if he does come in, has to assess that very quickly. I've lost faith in the owners to be able to do it. They're over in America. They're so distant and disconnected from the football club. It's untrue.
Yeah. What about the playing personnel? Is there anyone there? It's obviously an incredibly gifted group of players. Solskjaer unfortunately wasn't able to get a tune out of them towards the end. Is there any additions there, or is there the character of players, or is there anything in the playing squad?
I don't think there's look. Some would argue with me that I'm not saying that they don't need strengthening in a few areas, but I think there are a very good group of players there who should be able to achieve a lot of that football club. So talented, and a lot of youth, there's some experience as well. But they need someone to come in who's able to harness them, bring them together, get them to believe in a way of playing, an idea, and then basically get some results before the end of the season. But at the end of the season, I would imagine Manchester United are going to appoint a brand new manager, and that manager's got to be able to take those players forward. But I don't think Manchester United need upheaval in the dressing room. Some may disagree with me, but I don't think they do. They need basically now maybe some strengthening in central midfield. I'd argue that there is a right-back issue developing. Wan-Bissaka needs some challenge and needs some sort of what would be competition. Yeah. But other than that, I would look at it and think, get the players fit on the pitch that you've got, and you're going to have a great chance of winning a lot of football matches.
This run that obviously cost Solskjaer his job, Manchester United. A lot of Manchester United fans are going to be hurting after this. There's no manager at the club. Let's end on a message to the supporters. What would you say to them? Just the building blocks are there. Someone might come in and galvanise the club again.
Well, the Manchester United fans, the fans at every football club are the most important people. Manchester United fans are amongst the most loyal in the world. I think that ultimately they'll respect the fact that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has given his all in the last 3 years, and that Manchester United will always be here, and that people will come and go. People who love the club, people who've come in very quickly to sort of what we play for the club, people who have, Manchester United will always be here, irrespective of which personnel are transient through it. And the fact of the matter is, good times and bad times, it's still our club, and you support it. I grew up for 18 years not winning a league title, not seeing my club win a league title, so I'm used to it. I've got no problem with it. I then spent the most incredible 20 years of my life being part of something where we won plenty of titles. So I've seen both sides of it, and I'm not in a rush. I'm not going anywhere. I'm still going to be a Manchester United fan till the day that I die. And that'll never change, and there'll be worse times than today. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer losing his job is a sad day. Of course it is for Manchester United fans. He's a legend of the club, but there'll be worse days than this. And we'd always wish our best to Ole. He'll always be a club legend. Manchester United fans will be Manchester United fans long after today, irrespective of who plays for the club or what happens in the future.